Hi, welcome to Tea Time with Amy and Bev.
Good morning.
Good day, my friend. Good day.
Good day. It is a good day. Nice. How are things going? I saw your
I was
face.
waiting. I was waiting for you to ask because
There we go. Because what?
I always ask you first. I was
Oh,
waiting. Doing well. We come on here every week and we talk about processes for healing and we're still on a path of growing and expanding and learning and getting triggered and all the stuff. So we are not immune to it. And last week, so I did this event. I was one of the practitioners on a virtual event called Embrace the Woo, a spirituality experience. And it's fabulous all-day event. And as VIPs, so you upgrade and you get a VIP package, and then you get to experience up to 5 sessions with the practitioners. So you get to choose the practitioners you want to sit with. And even though I was a practitioner at the event, I could still sign up as a VIP and get experiences as well. So this is what I do. And this was I think it was the 4th time I've done the event. I've been with them since they started it last year. And so I sat with a gentleman, it was interesting, first of all, because normally I don't gravitate towards men for any healing practices. So it's one of those things, getting out of the comfort zone, right? And seeing and receiving from a masculine perspective. It could have been feminine. I mean, when he's in his healing gifts, he also brings that masculine energy perspective. And so sitting with him and the way he did his processes was awesome. I was glad I did it. But what I knew, so I'm going to ask this question, but I'm also going to tell you, I'm already aware of the question and I've used it before in my teachings, in my classes. But sometimes, when you learn new things, you implement the new things and the other things get set aside. So it's always, constantly changing. So anyway, his question was, are you willing to let this go? And that is such a powerful question, especially when you're starting this transformation journey. Are you willing to let this go? And this, quote unquote, this would be filled in with, are you willing to let the relationship with Joe go? Are you willing to let that anger that you're holding on to toward your mom when you were 6 go, right? So you got to fill in the blank with whatever it is you're working on. And as it was just like it reminded me, it's just such a powerful question. And you can also, another space to really implement that question is when you're doing your forgiveness process. I'm telling you, I'm telling you, and I'm laying this down as direct. You cannot step onto a transformation journey and not do any kind of forgiveness work. It's not possible. Because that is part of your transformation, is releasing I call it your bondage. You are bound. As long as you're hanging on to that stuff from the past, you are in bondage to the pain, the suffering, the anger, all of it. And until you do that forgiveness process for yourself, until you do that forgiveness process for yourself, you are going to be bound by it until you take your last breath. And a transformation journey is about changing you, about bringing peace and calmness within your own body. And so utilize that question. Are you willing to forgive so-and-so? Are you willing to forgive this situation? Are you willing to forgive this emotion? Are you willing to forgive yourself? Are you willing to use it? It's so powerful.
It really is, and it doesn't tell you that you have to do anything. It doesn't. It's just. It doesn't matter whether you do it or not.
Right.
You know what I mean? You can say it. It doesn't matter whether you forgive someone or not. It doesn't matter. I had an experience recently where I had seen someone that was in the industry that Jim was in, and she didn't even look at me. Like we were on the same aisle, walked side by side, and never even looked at me. And I thought, what the fuck? Like this has been Jim's transition. It will be 3 years in November, and are our situation was different than most other people's relationships, that we were in a different place at that time, which is neither here nor there. The bottom line was, how often do I sit and judge myself? And I still do. I'm going through this healing journey just as well as anybody else is, but I still catch myself. Realize now, because before that I was like, well, I'm willing to go on this journey now because I'm starting to understand things differently. It's not the same. It's not just about being grounded. It's not just about meditation. It's not just about any of these things, but I'm starting to understand things on such a deeper level that I feel like, well, honestly, I would not have understood it before. It didn't compute. So that means a lot of people that are in my experiences now may end up falling away, and I'm okay with that. And I already had this is before this had arrived. I'm like, it doesn't matter if someone likes me or doesn't like me. I know that people are going to fall away, and then not recognize it. So I'm coming from my 3D place. I'm walking through there and recognizing that. But after I've processed all of this, and I recognize that this is coming forward for me, it's like a test. Am I really ready to let go of this stuff? Because when we put ourselves out there, just like you, when you put yourself out there, people are judging. They judge because they judge themselves. It's not because of anything bad. And it doesn't matter. Nobody else was in my relationship besides myself and Jim. That was between Jim and I, unless I brought someone else into it, maybe having a conversation with them. And nobody really knows how things were. And even I have changed things over time, the way that I see them now, because he's no longer in the picture. Like you can totally love the person. There's nothing of the old stuff there anymore, because when someone transitions, you're not holding hope. Typically you shouldn't be, or you could, I guess, but it's not something that I did. I recognized it. Maybe it was where I was at on my journey, that this was my stuff. My grief was my own shit. It had nothing to, I mean, it had a lot to do with Jim, but it still had a lot to do with how I showed up in that relationship. And then forgetting how the other person had shown up in the relationship, because there was still a dance. I wasn't dancing by myself, but it's so easy to blame myself in so many ways. So back to that whole judgment thing. So I'm just recognizing all this stuff and how it's kind of playing out. Because I keep, when it comes up, just like with anybody else, if I don't have any tools or I don't know exactly what to do right then, I'm asking for help. Like, I don't know what to do with this stuff. And the information comes up, just like you just now bringing up, are you willing to forgive yourself? And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, yeah, I've done this a million times. And then I'm like, wait a minute, motherfucker, Bev, listen to what's being said, because this is for you being willing to forgive myself. It's being willing to forgive myself, not hold myself, gosh, in this place. And I think the crazy thing is, when we go through, you talk about the near-death experiences, and we know that we're going to go through the death experience, like, okay, well, let's just do it. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off right now, and let's do this freaking review, because I already know it's going to hurt like hell, right? But then again, maybe I'm not capable. Maybe I think that I'm capable of processing all that, and then maybe I'm not.
Yeah.
And guess what? It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay for me to be where I'm at right now. I can either stay in that space or I can evolve from it. It doesn't matter. But I can tell you what feels good. You know, from the experiences, I know what feels good. I know meditation feels good. I know when I miss meditation, I start getting all antsy, and I feel kind of fidgety and anxious, and a few other things. I could be easily spurred into whatever. Like right then, I'm not even really even, I'm back in the old days of being pulled along the way from this emotion to that emotion, from that person to that person, by the way they're feeling. And because I ride along on that wave, and I don't have to. But as soon as I went in this morning and I meditated, I did some self-care. I'm looking at face yoga, which is freaking amazing. I never had looked at it before. And then I started looking at scalp yoga, and then took it into some stretching and stuff. It's just so empowering, because I no longer feel like there's nothing I can do about anything. right? There's nothing I can do about the body transitioning. Well, yeah, there is. There is. I can go out being looking however I want to look, really. But it's all, this whole journey has been this, it's all part of the same thing. It's all related. And then realizing how much, well, that person's walking by me and not even seeing me. Oh, how have I been looking at myself? How have I been talking to myself? And I know how I've been, because I've been in the last, I probably say a few days, I've been pretty deep into feeling emotions. I feel like there's a lot of energies that are out there right now, and I feel like a lot of stuff is coming to the surface. And then I feel like a lot of us are not knowing what to do with that. And all we can do is keep asking, listen to this stuff, listen to whatever you're guided to the next thing.
Yeah, when you're talking, that the other thing that came up too during my session with this gentleman was he first asked, his first question was, are you ready to let this go? And I would say yes. And he's like, I don't feel that's true. And so he would ask me again, are you ready to let this go? And I'm like, now you start second guessing yourself. Or I did, I'm sitting there, I'm like, well, am I?
Awesome.
And he could tell by the hesitation, right? Of course,
Yeah.
you can tell by the hesitation. If I got to think about it, then yeah, apparently I'm not ready to let it go. Then he would ask, are you willing to let it go? And it softened it. And then it was like, huh, it was like more of a choice. Right? We go into that space where how can you use your words to soften the question or soften the statement so you believe it, so it feels true to you? And that's what he was doing. He was feeling into the words and my energy. And of course, I mean, body language and facial expressions are obvious, but he's an energy, he feels energy and how in his process. And so, yeah, so two different questions are there. Usually we ask, am I ready to let this go? And like you said, you're like, well, yeah, fuck it, I'm done with this. I'm tired of it. And then you feel into it and you're like, if you keep asking yourself, am I ready to let this go? Am I? It's like, am I ready to let this go? I don't know. But then when you say, are you willing? Are you willing to let this go? It's a whole different question.
It's
So,
funny as you're saying that too, because what's coming up for me is when we're doing that, we're holding on to things, right? Sometimes we get addicted to holding on to these things because it's familiar, and a way of letting go, that means you're letting go of a part of you. You're letting go of something, right?
right.
And that's kind of scary. It's kind of a scary thought. And it's interesting because I was talking to one of my clients last Friday, and I was telling him, yeah, well, I'm over this. Yeah, I'm pretty good. Oh, and then he didn't say anything to me, and I stopped for a second. I'm like, I guess I'm really not. I guess I'm not over exactly what I'm saying. It's so easy. I love that he even questioned you, because even if you would have still said, yes, I am over it, you stopped and processed that. You didn't just stop and push it away. You
Yeah.
didn't just stop. And so that just goes to show how you've evolved, which is awesome. Even still, your answer could have been, no, actually, I feel like I really am good about this. And then everything would have changed. But your reaction, everything that you did, which we don't pay attention to a lot unless we're in awareness,
Yeah.
had said everything.
Yeah, it was a digging into the question when he said, are you ready to let this go? And I said, yes. And he's like, I don't feel that to be true.
You're like, yes, show me the way.
He's like, so then we would actually dig into it. He would ask me, what basically what it came down to is, what am I getting by hanging on to it? Because we're getting something. People don't realize that when you're hanging on to something, when you're hanging on to a person of the past or a relationship or experience or whatever it is, by hanging on to it, there's some kind of a reward.
Absolutely.
And if you let that go, you're not going to get that reward anymore. And so you have to look. I mean, sometimes it takes a little digging, takes some deeper work. And this is why, I mean, I encourage people to get a coach, because as a coach or a mentor, we don't have attachments. We don't have attachments to your situations, and we don't as the client, you have attachments, you have blinders on, you have these heavy emotions. And as a coach, like, we're on the outside looking in and we're like, okay, well, I see this, this, and this. And then you go, oh my gosh, I had no idea. Like, seriously, the issue I was working on with this gentleman came down to, it was a control issue and I didn't even realize it. I was like, wait, what? Okay. Okay. I can see how this is happening. And then after we, sifted through all that and figured out, now he's like, are you willing to let this go? And I said, yes. And he's like, okay, I feel that to be true.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's interesting because you do, and it could be from, I think a lot of times we will approach things from the wounded, how dealing with things like you just even said, you typically aren't drawn to men or whatever for this kind of stuff, really.
Yeah.
And I'm being blown away by, well, there's so many different, you got Matt Kahn, you've got Alex Ferrari, you've got, gosh, and he's interviewed so many different guys. Like it's really showing how we're all going through this experience, and we all need each other. We all do. And how huge is it for you if there's some sort of a blockage or some sort of a like protection, right, between you and the male figure or whatever, because of experiences.
Right.
Because we lose control over things sometimes, and we don't want to be in that space again where that control has been taken away from us by that type of energy. And then it turns out to be something totally different, but you opened yourself up for this. Like,
Yeah.
you opened up, you could have been like, you could have shut everything off, stayed behind that shield, but you didn't. You opened up for it and embraced the experience. Maybe in the past you might not have embraced it.
And there's a difference between listening to YouTube videos by Matt Kahn, Alex Ferrari, Wayne Dyer, all the men. There's a difference between listening to them and having a session with one, right?
Yeah.
So it's a work in progress of me feeling comfortable to be with a male and having them coach me. Because in history, I was very intimidated by the male figure. So I didn't feel safe. And if I don't feel safe, this ain't gonna work. Right. So
that speaks volumes too, because that means that you're safe. Like, look at all the stuff that you've done. And that's, I try to tell people this stuff. God, do you ever stop and look and process how much you've gone through and how much you've changed? We do, but a lot of people don't. I was listening to the Grandmaster Wolf yesterday, and he was talking about writing on one side of the paper negative and one side on the other side positive about yourself. And he says people think they're going to get all these freaking ideas about them, all the negative. They've got so much negative, and they'll find that there's hardly anything to write down. It's just what we put our attention onto is what we're focused upon. Go sit in that corner and think about what you did wrong. I always remember that as a statement. Or go sit in your room and think about that. You're grounded for 6 months and you have plenty of time to think about what you've been doing wrong. I mean, it was all those things. So I find it fascinating just to see, like, everyone, all gurus, all teachers, I imagine at some point or another are still learning. They're still learning or they wouldn't be here. No, not one person knows everything. And that's why it's so valuable for each of us to be here and for each of us to shine our light, because each of us has a message. It might sound similar to someone else, but your energy feels different and your words feel different. And there's so much amazingness from all of us. And it's easy for us to hide behind our wounds. And it's so easy to hide behind the people that were in our lives and that aren't in our lives. The status, like so many things. When someone said, oh yeah, we're going into a 7-year, I'm like, okay, well, this is going to be interesting.
Here we go.
Yeah. Interesting, because I've been through a 7-year with awareness recently. And now interesting because there's so much growth. There's so much growth, and thank God, because it just shows us that all the time there's more information that we've gained and more knowledge and more tools. and then how we can move through this stuff. And then with awareness, not like, oh God, whew, made it across that bridge and almost got ate by a dragon, but I made it. I'm safe. Don't have
Right.
to look
Did
back
you
that way
die?
again. Yeah, exactly. And sometimes we just wish we would. That's all. Sometimes, those thoughts go through our mind. And when that happens, when we do have those thoughts, why are we having those thoughts that we don't want to be here anymore? For me, I felt for me, my experience, the times that I wanted to disappear, I think it's because I'm looking at myself so bad and I see myself so bad it doesn't want to be here. Like it's crossing a finish line that's never, it's not even there. Like I've created some sort of a race to get to nowhere. Like all that just feels uncomfortable. So when I start letting this stuff go, when I start doing the meditation, when I pull my cards, when we have these conversations, when I take the time to do the face yoga, which is freaking amazing, but we don't realize we start becoming these robots here in these bodies because we do the same thing all the time.
Right.
And then even for massage, for me to be bent forward and stuff and not be watching my form as well as I used to, I've just gotten lazy into it, or whatever you want to call it, or maybe it's just timed. That's just my body's way of saying, hey, we're not excited about this anymore. This is not our excitement. This is not our passion. I love seeing the people. I love talking to them, but it's just being aware of those things so that we move forward and keep doing something different and not get stuck into these places that we're
Yeah.
constantly evolving. So it's just awesome. It's awesome because I know how far we've come, but I also see how far we're going. It's like there's so much more. And I welcome it. I do. I welcome it. Some days are a little bit harder than others, but that's when we realize that we're not by ourselves and we ask for help. That's so important. Ask your angels, ask your guides, and then wait and see how it shows up. That's the fun. That's the fun part. You just forget about it and know that you already asked.
And I've been in uh that space of asking, and I tell you what, shit's coming at me so fast. I'm like, I'm like, okay, hold on, time out. It's like I can't keep up with this universe. But um I one of the things, not a struggle, but when it comes to having, a business, and I sit here in my house all day, every day, working on classes and events and stuff like that, putting them together, doing the marketing. I'm at home. Like, I am not out socializing. I am part of a nonprofit organization, and that is my social outlet, right? So I've been putting that out into the universe. I need to get out more and socialize more and stuff like that, right? So I went to a goddess yoga on Sunday night. Never done
Nice.
goddess yoga before. I was pretty amazing. I really enjoyed it. And some people there were asking me about stuff and teaching classes, and one lady was asking me if I would go there where I was at for the class to do a workshop. And then on Sunday as well, I talked to another lady, and I've agreed to, our Pitchfork Market, that's the first Sunday of every month. I agreed to do readings with a handful of people at that event. And so now I'm starting to, right, get out there more. I mean, I know a lot of people in this town. But a lot of people actually still don't know what I do. And from those two things on Sunday, this morning, I'm like, okay, asking universe, what do I need to get together, get put in place for this event that's on the first Sunday of April? Like, I have 2 weeks, right? I have a whole page of stuff. Holy cow, universe. So yeah, when you ask and stuff comes, you better be ready. You just better be ready, because I'm telling you, especially, I know it's true for me. I've experienced it when I first started on this journey of transformation. Like I just wanted to soak up everything and know everything. And I had people giving me books, suggesting books and do this and do that. And I had information coming at me so fast. And I said, oh, wait, time out, universe. I can't read this fast, or I probably could. I just don't have the skills yet. So we need to tone it down a little bit so I can absorb some of this stuff I'm reading. But it's the same even today. It's like once you ask, once you put it out there, you better be ready. You had better be ready because it's going to come. And coaches have coaches, and if you're seeing somebody as a coach and you ask if they're being coached and they say no, you need to get a new coach. Just saying, because we are also evolving and expanding all the time as well, which is beneficial for our clients and our students. And so yeah, so it's a constant thing. I'm always learning and open to new stuff. I have 2 other things that I've been looking into that are like certification programs. I'm always interested in learning and growing new and different things, because that's beneficial for my clients and students as well. And I don't even know where I was going with that, but anyway, it's important to continue learning, just being open to this stuff and allowing it to come. And when the information comes, though, you got to do something with it. Oh, I was going to say, my mentor, I have a coach too, mentor and coach. And what she was telling us was, because we would say this, we got stuff coming at me so fast and then I get overwhelmed. What happens with overwhelm? Shut down. And she's like, you get overwhelmed because you're not in alignment with what you have asked for. You still have to keep your vibration up, and you have to keep moving forward. You have to keep implementing or taking the steps to implement whatever is coming to you. You just don't get into overwhelm, be in the excitement and creativity of it, because you have asked the universe for this stuff, and now it's coming. Be in alignment with receiving it. And in past, I would do the overwhelm shutdown thing and to get your momentum going again, and then asking for help again. Right? You get on that hamster wheel of I want it, but it's too much. I want it, but I don't have time. I want it, but right. And so now I'm like, okay, I got the information, universe, give me a breath here so I can get this implemented, then the next. Right? It's a co-creation with the universe, not just and being mindful of yourself. Like, know what you can handle. Just know what you can. Like I said, I have a whole page I wrote this morning just pertaining to this April 2nd event. Okay, does that mean I need to do all of it, get it all done? No. These are the things I could get done. Right? So we just go back into that. Am I willing? Am I willing to at least do some of this stuff? Yeah, absolutely. Because I can get the rest done later. It's okay. Am I willing to give myself permission to have some ease and grace? Absolutely. Right? So just, yeah, when you ask, you better be ready, but don't get into that overwhelm space.
Well, and if you do, it's to remember that we have control. So at any time you can say, okay, we need to slow this down because I'm not understanding, but you did help me to write down a question and help me get into alignment for what I have asked for. So whatever we asked for, we can ask ourselves to be brought into alignment, which reminds me, you talked about, we kind of talked, I think, out of the scene about a big class, bringing a bigger group together. Well, that asking has brought forward all this other stuff.
Right.
Because you wanted to be out more. So now you're bringing more of these people. Now they're going to have an understanding about what you're doing. And now you're going to be able to fill up a space, no problem. So this is part of becoming in alignment with what you've asked for. Yeah. It's awesome.
And in that process, I'm meeting people who have put on events, people that I ask questions of, developing these relationships. So absolutely, these are like those stepping stones. I'm still holding that vision of having a bigger event. In the meantime, people need to know who I am. Right. So this is a way. And it's fun. I like doing readings. I think they're just fun to do. I love giving uplifting guidance to people. My goal is that when somebody sits down in front of me, that I want them to feel better when they leave than when they arrived. Anything that sets them on a good feeling path, even if it's for a few moments or the rest of the day, just so, they can get that glimpse. This is what it feels like to feel good, to feel lighter, to have some joy, to get some laughter. And so yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. And then I want you to know that the universe has an absolute amazing sense of humor. I just have to put this out there because I find it hysterical. The lady who's bringing together some card readers interviewed each and every one of us. She's a psychic medium. She's also a channeler, and she's in our area. But she interviewing all the people that have been suggested to her, so she can decide if she feels comfortable with their abilities, right? So anyway, we connected, and it was great. We had a great conversation. We shared about our stories, and then she said, next one's April 2nd. And I'm like, okay. So I committed to it, and I looked at my calendar, and we were on the phone, and I said, isn't it interesting that we're the first event that we're doing of card readers, because we're going to be off in a separate kind of room. I said, isn't it interesting that we're going to be showing up at this event on Palm Sunday?
That's funny.
I just laughed. I just thought that was hysterical.
That's funny.
So the universe.
The literal. So yeah, that's awesome.
So anyway, yes, the universe has a great sense of humor, and they will put you out there. They'll get you out of your comfort zone. And because you've been asking, if you're asking, then you better be ready. That's all I can keep saying is you just better be ready, because they're gonna nudge you. They're gonna nudge you for sure.
And it's exciting, but it's exciting. That journey is exciting, but at all times, remember, it's not like being on a ride. You can actually ask for things to kind of slow down, or I'm not understanding this, or I need a break, or we have so much more. We have so much control. We're not. It's not like one and done and that's it. We're gaining knowledge throughout the whole process. We're learning all this information. I'm learning about, like, I was listening to the Kundalinis. A lot of people listen to a lot of that stuff, and you'll have to do your own research. I'm just putting the word out there for everyone else to go look into it. And I'm listening to an interview with Alex this morning. I think that's who I was listening to. And they're talking about the Kundalini rising. And basically, it talks about people trying to get to a place, and sometimes they're not in alignment for what they're asking to receive. And it turns out to be a lot. I say a little bit, but a big bumpy ride. Like, can be scary for some people, because you go through all this awakening all at one time. Like the stuff that we're talking about, we're giving you bits and pieces of what we're processing weekly. This is something that would be happening like all at once within, days or hours, or, I mean, some of them will stay in a state for so long afterwards, just because of it, a blissed out state. Once they get to that place after the dark night of the soul being, this horrible things, you don't even want to be here anymore. But it's really looking at a lot of this stuff. The reason why, what makes you tick. Just like you said, when you're people want to get to know you, they don't even know who I am. Do you know who you are 100%? I don't. So I just say that out loud, because because I feel like we're learning, because we're kind of seeing all the little things that we picked up along the way. It's like, I don't need that. I don't need that. Those things, that doesn't make any sense to me anymore, to be in that space. One thing I have noticed, for me, a lot of times in relationships or whatever, it could have been a job or whatever, relationship, job, friendship, because they're all relationships. if I left one and went to something else, if I left one job and went to the other job, there might be some things at the other job I wish I would have still stayed with, or why did I leave so quick, or I might hold on to that stuff. So for me, I can recognize for most of my stuff, I've held on to the past, and that was just me, and that was just a realization recently. How I could go, like, it's so great to go over here, but then I might hold on to something somewhere else, and I think that's what keeps me from moving forward in a lot of places, because I'm afraid to make that leap for whatever reason. Well, I'll tell you what reason, because it's coming up. It's abandonment, right? So not even abandoning myself, not even abandoning all that stuff, but recognizing it goes back to the same stuff. I'm safe. I am willing to move forward. Okay, universe, help me bring me into alignment for what I'm asking for. Like, all these things right now that we're talking about today are amazing.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because that was the thing I was working on last week with this gentleman was, I was being controlling in a relationship so that they wouldn't abandon me. That's how the control was showing up.
Okay. And it makes sense. It
Yeah.
makes total sense.
Yeah. So the whole abandonment issue is, it's like, oh, because I thought I was doing really good with it. He's like, are you willing to let this go?
Mhm. Yeah, because there's somebody that I say I forgive him, I forgive him, I forgive him, and then recently the story started coming up again. So I'm still looking at stuff, which I will continue looking at stuff until I'm in that space where I'm willing to forgive, because I'm really not. I'm really not. Not when I start processing. Well, that person said all this stuff about me. Now all these people believe this stuff about me, and so I got caught up in that space again recently, and I'm like, okay, well, you're not ready, and guess what? That's okay, because you'll be ready. You have an asking. I have an asking within inside of me that's pointing me in a direction. And I've talked about it before. Holding someone in darkness is holding ourselves in darkness. And that's okay. Because maybe I'm going to find what I'm looking for in that darkness. I'm going to shine a light on what I'm looking for in that darkness. So it's okay. It's okay.
And it's a
It's okay
great
not to be
indicator.
perfect. It's what?
It's a great indicator. It's like, oh, okay, I still got some work to do around this.
100%. That's all it is. It's just a tool. It's
Yeah.
just one of our gauges flashing like, hey, you're not looking at the earth right now. You're kind of going sideways a little bit on
Yeah.
things. You're not looking at the view correctly. You don't want to land this way. So that's all that it's saying. They're just gauges.
And it was the same for me last week when I was in that session was, oh, I had no idea that's what was going on. Right. Well, he has no attachment to it. He can see it from a different perspective, and he can bring that information to me so I can see it or acknowledge it. And then it's the regurgitation, right? Comes up and out when it's ready. And that's, like for yourself, just ease and grace that it's ready. And it's up to you what you do with the information. Like, you could sit and hang on to it till you take your last breath if you want. I'm not forgiving this person. Okay. I mean,
Okay.
I don't have any judgment against that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But people are going to come along and keep pushing that button that you got says right here, I'm not forgiving you. And somebody keep, right. So it's just going to keep coming up. But also the other thing is it lingers there. And you
Oh
think,
yeah. It's on the surface. It's surfacey, right? It's not. It doesn't go deep anymore. You don't have to go
yeah,
looking for that. It's right
oh,
there.
it's
It
up.
rides there. Yeah.
It's got your
Yes.
attention. And
Yes,
so
it does.
it's
Because
lingering there. And
because why?
so in Joe Dispenza's book that I'm reading, I just read the chapter about the purpose of mind movies. I know I've talked about this before, and you can go look it up. It's a very beneficial tool because what it does, it's similar to having a vision board, right? You create a vision board of pictures of what you want to manifest and bring into your life. Well, this is a video. They usually keep about 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes. And it's images, it's words like affirmations, and music. And what his explanation of the way he does it, so mind movies, that's all it is. It's the images, the music, and the words. With Joe Dispenza, he's worked with mind movies, the owners, and what he came up with was He uses the images of a kaleidoscope, and that kaleidoscope, you know how the images keep changing, and it's like it's just a beautiful transformation of these images. And the idea is to get you into a very relaxed state with your mind so that your subconscious can be accessed. So you go through that, and then the mind movie starts playing. So now it's got the images, the music, and the words, and you're watching that, and then it goes back to the kaleidoscope with just the music that you had on the mind movie, so that it's triggering the memories of what you want to bring into your life, right? What you want to manifest. And I knew all that. He goes, here's the thing. When a song plays, when you hear a song from your past, how many memories get triggered just by that song, whether they're happy or sad? He's doing the same thing, only future. And I'm like, that's genius. I love that. I'm like, so now,
Totally.
so if I was to pick a song, of that I like, I just listen to the ones that are on YouTube and pick and choose which ones I want to listen to and watch. But if I was to pick a song and play a mind movie, even if I watched it on YouTube, I've actually just thought about this morning. Like I could pull up on YouTube on my laptop a mind movie, put it on, just turn the volume down, and then take my phone and pick a song and make sure I play that same song with that mind movie for several days. He's like suggesting 30 days. Every time I hear that song, I would think about that mind movie, which is all future based, which is all about manifesting. I'm like, this is so good. This is so good. I love it.
That is, I love it. And it's true because and the tones, everything kind of goes together. All of it does.
Yeah.
It really does. And just to sit and when you just sit and feel those tones, just even hear those tones. I was listening to just like I think it was going through the whole chakra system for the energy of it. And it was different tones that I wouldn't typically listen to, but as I'm listening to it, I can feel it. I can feel my body responding to whatever it's playing. So I just listened to the whole thing and I felt great afterwards and went on my merry way, right? Didn't even give it a second thought. But this is awesome because it helps to put stuff into the consciousness and the subconsciousness of different ways of handling situations. So we're not operating from the old, back into the old, just the typical ways that we would handle things always. There's no reason to go back into that space any longer because we have new information and we're no longer just going, we don't have to just be autopilot. Our autopilot can be totally set different. I guess autopilot's what was the word I was looking for, but we can set it differently so that we evolve forward in our days instead of feeling like we're going backwards again. And this is all part of the whole thing. It's not just one thing. You can't just go out and do, I mean, you can, but I just, from my perspective or from what I've experienced so far, it's not just ever one thing. It's multiple things. This is a whole journey. Like we have all these senses and we were given all these senses and we don't even use them to their full potential. We don't, because we get caught up in labels. We've talked about that, getting caught up in a tree or a plant or a bush or a grass instead of just being witness to what you're seeing, what you're experiencing right now, what you're feeling, what you're smelling, what you're hearing. Like there's so many different things. How does that vibrational frequency feel in your body? Because it does. If I sit outside, I told someone recently, and I said, I don't really tell many people this stuff, but whatever. I sit outside, I'll put my feet in the dirt, no shoes on, and I'll close my eyes and let the sun hit me. And I'll see myself. It's almost as if I'm going through a tunnel. It's not real defined, but I can see the energy going forward, away from me or out from me, and I can see it flowing right back into me. It's pretty crazy, but it's fun. So I'll just sit in that space and I'll see colors. Does the same thing happen every time? No. But that's the whole experience. We get to sit and try all these different things. We get to learn more about this physical vessel that we're in right now. And then it helps us learn more about ourselves. Because like you said, when something doesn't feel good, we start asking questions. It's not to go go get a drink real quick to cover it up. It's not to go grab the pills to go cover it up. It's to sit and feel that. Why am I feeling that way? Because I don't want to feel that way. I don't, and if it's at the surface right now, let's do this. Like, let's get it cleaned up now. I don't want to just leave it till later on because it's right here, right now.
Yeah.
And again, it's asking those questions like, how do I move through this? What does this even mean? Why is this showing up for me right now? It's asking questions, and then answers always come. Just as simple as I was just talking to you a few minutes ago, and I'm like, I don't know the answer to that. And I continue talking and I get the answer to it immediately. It blows my mind how easily we can receive information.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And then I've gotten to the place where if I'm out like cooking, I haven't made anything for a long time, but anyways, if I'm out like a couple of years, but if I'm out in the making our smoothies or whatever, if I'm doing any of that kind of stuff, I'll be listening to that. I might be listening to a podcast or whatever, and then I'll start receiving dialogue. Even I'll have conversations in my head. I spent time yesterday taking care of the cats, talking to myself out loud, answering things, just having a full-on conversation. And I knew that it was my higher self speaking through. We were just having this whole dynamic session. That's
Yeah.
how it's been. That's how it's been a lot lately.
That's awesome.
It's crazy. It is awesome. But I think we do it. I think we all do it all the time. Maybe not to the extent that I'm doing it right now, but I didn't used to do it like this either. But I think that we're always having these conversations. There's always something going on. We have thoughts going on in our mind, and it's just really being in that space to recognize, what are those thoughts? Is this a waste of my time right now? Am I being stuck in the past? Like, am I maintaining this place when I can be right here, right now?
Yeah.
Because I do it. That's when I like, when I kick myself in the butt, like, why are you there right there again? But I understand it. I'm understanding this, even though sometimes it can be frustrating. But just going through the whole process is it's so enjoyable once you get to the other side of it. And even as I'm learning as I go through all these processes, I'm enjoying it as I'm going through it. Because I know, well, this is exciting because now I'm getting ready to let go of something else. And if I let go of something, I have room and space for something else.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
It really is. You're talking about the sun and sitting with your feet in the dirt and all that. It reminded me that, listening to one of Alex's videos, he talked to he said just briefly about documentary, I would guess. It's called Unacknowledged by Dr. Greer. And I watched it the other day.
Okay.
And it had on there's it reminded me of oh my gosh, the X-Men movies where they have the school for the gifted.
Okay.
Yeah, so they have these children, they have these blindfold, like they're huge, these
Yes, I
blindfold
know all
masks.
about that.
Huh?
Yeah. I'm very well. I was going to bring this up actually last time or the time before that because I'd seen a TikTok. Keep going because it's awesome.
It is awesome, but they have these kids that have, like, I'm talking kids like 7, 8, 10, somewhere in that, and they have these big old blindfolds on, like there's no way they can see anything, and they're thick.
Yes.
And this kid was reading a book, and this other kid was identifying colors of bean bags. They was being placed in his hand, and as soon before it even hit his hand, he knew the color of it. And there was a section where they actually went into the grocery store, and I got a blindfold on. They take them in the aisle, and they're like, pick out whatever it was. I forget what specifically they said, but a specific brand chili with beans. Now, when you walk in a grocery store, you got the off brand, you got the name brand, but they said the specific brand, and like, kid just went right to it, picked it off the shelf. I'm like, that's fucking cool.
It is. They're having adults do it too, because I've seen that, then doing the cards and all this stuff. It's so,
Yeah.
There was a long time ago, and I don't know if it was Believe It or Not, or it was some other show that was on, but there was a kid that had lost his sight. He had a sight and then lost his sight completely. And then they showed him riding a skateboard down the street. He doesn't have the eyes.
Yeah.
And he's riding down the street because he was using the third eye area, because we have been trained away from so many different things. And it's so wonderful that all this stuff is being brought to the surface again.
Yeah.
Because I thought this is where the schools need to go. This is the importance. Is it's agriculture. There's so many different directions, but this is one of those things. And I thought, well, that's amazing, because it's amazing for people, because we can all do this. It just goes to show you that, people, we've talked about Atlantis, or there's been a lot of talk about Atlantis. And I feel like a lot of the conversations that I have heard, they've said that Atlantis was so far above us, so well beyond us in so many ways. But I feel like we're really gaining a lot of footing, a lot of ground right now that we're covering, getting into this space, because it's almost like we're going through a rapid, all this information. It blows my mind, because none of this stuff would have been on 10 years ago. Well, I wouldn't have seen any of this stuff.
No.
I just didn't. And I had seen that recently, and I thought, this is wonderful. So then I got, like talking to the kids, like, really, it's important. Let's get these kids meditating more. Let's get them more centered. Let's get them to where they don't have, there's nothing to be afraid of.
Yeah.
And then listening to them, I've heard, I've heard a few conversations. Like, my grandson said something about, like, I thought I picked someone that was nice this time. Ooh, what does that even mean? Yeah. And talking about people that are permanent in his life right now, that's pretty huge. There's a lot of, there's big stuff there. There's big stuff.
And
But we miss out on those conversations if we're not listening, if we're not in awareness.
And the interesting thing too is that documentary was just done in 2017. It was recent. Like, it's fairly, new, but the information is old.
Yeah, I'm gonna check it out. Totally. And then
So,
I want you to remind everybody, what's the name of that Joe Dispenza book that you're reading?
I'm trying to think of the name of it a while ago. It's like, dang it, what's the name of the book? I can go get it real quick. I know it's uncommon people doing, or common people doing uncommon things.
If not, I think I've got it, definitely have it written down. So then we can just add it to.
Supernatural. What is it called? Jeez, oh Louise. Joe Dispenza. I'm Googling right now. Becoming Supernatural. There you go. Jeez, oh.
Okay.
I don't know why I can't ever remember the name of his book. It's just so weird. But anyway, a while ago you were talking about the shadow side, and this was hysterical to me. I had a smile on my face, and I was more laughing inside, not externally, because we're in this class. Well, we're in that goddess yoga class the other night. Now it's nighttime. Okay, so the lights are turned down in the room. Like, the actual lights were off in the room, but they had like a salt lamp, and then she had some small red lamps facing the walls, because we were working on our root chakra and our heart chakra, and this one point, music's playing, and it really gets you into the feminine, the sensuality of the feminine, and moving your body, right? So one of the parts was, okay, find your shadow on the wall, because you're going to dance with your dark side, and then you be a blending of knowing that you can have both, right? And so she said, okay, find your shadow on the wall. I turned to the wall. Could not find my shadow. I was like, this is awesome. And then I looked down, and I could see, like, from my feet, how it goes out from your feet. So I could see a little bit of a shadow there on the floor from my feet, but I just leaned up against the wall and just did what we were supposed to be doing. But it was so damn funny. I was cracking up.
That's
I'm
funny.
like, she's fading away. That dark side's fading away. That's a celebration.
That is a celebration. This is the year. This is the year, which makes me excited for next year, even still, which is, I know it's a lot further away than that doesn't need my attention right now, but it just makes me excited for next year because it's exciting now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It is exciting. Yeah, it's about foundation for me this year. So it makes sense that all these little stepping stones are going to be gravitating towards bigger things. So
Yeah. I like it.
it's fun. So fun.
And then it means you're aligned with it too. You're aligned with what you're
Yeah.
asking for. And that's huge. Those are all the things to give acknowledgement to for everybody out there. It's to give acknowledgement for this path that you're on, this journey that you're on, how far you've come. On it, I feel like on a daily, it's having that appreciation, which you've talked about. We haven't talked about it for a long time, but you talked about it just like in journaling, you would put 5 things or something along those lines. It's been a while since we've talked about it, but you
Yeah.
would talk about 5 positive things, or at the end of the day, like what positive things can I talk about today? Or and it's huge because that's how I would want teachers to talk to kids. That's how we would want to talk to our own inner child. Is getting that information because we've been trained to look at other things that aren't necessary, and looking at things that we did wrong doesn't really serve purpose. And knowing that we came here to have this whole experience, and to look back at those things and say, oh, it's just an experience, I just had an experience. And then hearing conversations like, I think I brought it up recently, near death experiences, and them talking about how they could have made different decisions, but the decisions they made, even though they were judging them and felt they were the wrong decisions, were at that time the best decision. There wasn't another decision to be made at that time.
Yeah.
So I find it, I find all this interesting. I find it fascinating that we're all on this growth to all of us together, all of us. Nobody's nobody's out of this. I mean, you can dip out and like peace out. I'm done with this journey here, and a lot of people have, and that's okay because it
Yeah.
just breaks way for new people. We talked about recently, or I don't know if it was you and I, but how all these new beings that are coming to the earth are creating such a ripple effect in our thought processes, in the way that we move forward. It's not we're no longer operating from that other space, like ancestral. I feel like it's getting further and further away from a lot of that. Some of it, the good stuff that we can still utilize and grow with,
Sure.
more is still coming forward. But I feel like a lot of the stuff is we're finding that it's not necessary. The
Yeah.
old conversations with spirituality was like, you got to get grounded, you got to do this, and you got to do that. And I feel like a lot of the stuff is a lot more simpler for me. Instead of going looking for all this stuff, it's everything's been brought to the surface with grace and ease. And then I'm even asking myself, well, why am I reacting the way that I'm reacting? Because it feels so heavy and so dark. But when I'm looking at it from an awareness space, or from just this is, oh, Bev's experiencing this right now. When I'm looking at it from that space, I'm like, why are you so reactive to this? Like, why are you even having a response? You're being silly right now. Like, this must have been really your little kid that really needed to be seen. So this is your reaction right now.
Yeah.
It's super cool.
That's the whole controlling side of me showing up when I feel like abandonment's in it happening.
Yeah, makes
So,
sense.
yeah.
Because subconsciously, you're not even thinking, you're not
Right.
like going out like, no, mother, you're not getting away this easily.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
that conversation, that's not even that's not even the conversation, right? It's so much, it's just so much more gentle than that.
Right. And then I want to just bring up a piece of how we're connected. Okay. I'm going to share this story. It's real quick. A lot happened on Sunday. Was it Sunday or Saturday? Maybe it was Saturday. It was Saturday. That was my lazy day. So I'm sitting there and I get well, 2 years ago, I was in a position of caretaking for my neighbor. Her husband was in the hospital in Phoenix, and we're like 3.5, 4 hours away, and she had no family here. We've lived next door to him for like 20 plus years. And one of the agreements my husband and I had was we would not move until they were no longer around, because we knew we had developed that type of a relationship that we knew we would have some kind of activity in their life at some point as they got older. So it was already one of those things. It was just a knowing. So anyway, 2 years ago, I was helping caretake for the wife for 3 months until her husband came home, and he came home set up on hospice. And then a month later, he transitioned. Well, my son, so Saturday, I'm sitting in my recliners, chilling, and I get a text from my son. The only thing he sent me was a picture of our neighbor, the male, in this little Mini Cooper that he had bought, and he was so excited about it. The guy's like 6 foot tall, and the Mini Cooper, I mean, came up to my chest. This vehicle's like little, right? So he's sitting in, I'll call him Joe. Joe's sitting in the car in his garage. And I guess Matthew took the picture, and Joe's just got this big old smile on his face, right? That was the only thing my son sent me. He just sent me a text with that image. No words, no nothing, just the image. And I looked at it and I'm like, his daughter's thinking about him right now. His daughter lives in California. So I forward the image to her in text, and I said, I just got this from Matt, thought I'd share it with you. That's all I said. She replied, she's like, oh my God, you'll never believe this. And then the next line was, well, actually you will, haha, because she knows me. And I'm just like, our thing is, every time a synchronicity like this happens, it's so fucking cool, is in capital letters with exclamation points, because it's just so, it amazes me every single time. So she sent back, it was a few minutes later, she said, I finally got myself into a space where I could text you. She goes, but the gist was, not only was she thinking about him in that moment, she was actually talking about him with her friends. They're in Texas, and they were at a St. Patrick's parade, and a truck, her dad had this old Chevy truck, and a truck similar to that was rolling by, and she pointed it out, and she's telling her friends how her dad had a truck like that, and what was going on 2 years ago. This is when he would have been had just come home, and we're taking care of him and all that. And I sent her that image.
It's awesome.
I'm like, you can't make this stuff up. You cannot make this stuff up. And for my son to be open, he's very open and intuitive, to just send me that image. And it wasn't even, I mean, I looked at the image and it warmed my heart, and I'm like, his daughter's thinking about him. And I just sent it off to her. She wasn't just thinking about him, she was talking about him in that moment. I'm like, how fucking cool is that?
It is cool.
Love
That
it.
is really cool. Yep. And that's why it's so important for us to listen. Like when we receive that guidance to do that, just do it, because it's so beneficial to someone else. It's their confirmation, because they're reaching out to so many people at one time for us to do these things.
He's
to
like,
relay the messages.
Across. I will get my message through to her that I'm with
That's
her.
right. I'm still here. I'm still here, even better than I was before.
Oh my gosh, it was great. I loved it. Yeah.
I love it.
And I'm glad that, I'm at a space now where I am open to that as well. Like, I think about somebody, I need to call them because something's going on, and they all, every single time, we won't talk for months, maybe even years, and I'll call or send them a text. They're like, you always know when to reach out. So we are connected. That's why that show Unacknowledged was fantastic, when they brought up that piece about the kids doing those things. We are so incredibly powerful. And you had mentioned, these are the things that schools should be teaching. Well, I agree. But when you look at it from a political side, people who know the truth are, and so That's why we have either the underground or the private schoolings or teachings or classes for people to attend these so that they can learn to utilize their body, to know truth, right? To feel the energy, to learn how to read energy and tap into what is the truth for you. And your truth right now may be different from your truth in a week or in a year or 10 years. Doesn't matter. What feels like truth for you right now, and learning to tap into that. And I feel strongly that that's what 2020 was all about. Well, 2020 to now, with the fake news and the fake agendas and all the stuff that, if you really feel into it, if you can hear it, but feel into it, and then you can discern, does this really feel like truth to me? Or, does this feel fear-based? Does this feel loving? And the difference between those two. There's no fine line between those two. The difference, whether it's fear or love. And the truth in government right now is going to change. No doubt it's going to change. But right now, the truth is you can't control people who aren't giving into what you're feeding them. So that's why we have the light workers, Bev and I, all these thousands and thousands, if not millions of people who are shining their light, teaching about this, teaching, having classes and all that for you to attend, to learn how to read energy, how to tap into your own intuition. And so I would highly suggest that you start getting familiar with that. So anyway.
Yeah, no, I feel like we're going in the process, and regardless of whatever is going on, I think we're going to start seeing different schools opening up. I think we're going to start seeing a lot of different things. Yeah. And it's going to be different. Maybe it's not going to be where it's funded by the governments. Maybe it's going to be us funding them in our own ways. Maybe it's us offering the land so that you can bring out the class to come do vegetables, or, whatever. There's so many different things there's possibilities that are everywhere. They're endless, right?
Yep.
They are. So that's the exciting part. That really is. And to know that it's capable, because we're seeing that it's already done. And then where does that evolve from there? It's all happening already. And these kids are ready for it. Like, all the kids are ready for it. They already know as soon as you can start setting them up that way, I think they'll be fine. I mean, they're going to be fine anyways, but we can get there a lot quicker. It doesn't have to be you don't have to wait till you're 50 years old to figure it out.
Right.
Or have some idea of what it might look like that you've got it figured out.
Wow, what a great conversation today. Thank you, Bev.
Yes, thank you.
And thank you to our audience for hanging out with us, whether it was in real time or watching the replay. We appreciate you. Always open for you to leave any questions or comments, and make it an incredible week.
Awesome. Love it. Have fun. Be a kid. Seriously.
Right.
Which means just we had the conversation here at our house yesterday, but which means just being here right now with everything.
Yeah. Awesome. We'll see you next week.
Bye.